The three of us returned to the ancient tomb in Danyan Kao. The work was nearing completion. After only a few chops, a large hole opened up in the tomb wall. I shone my flashlight in. The space inside was not small. The gap between the hole and the tomb floor was about more than 1 meter. Tuyen Bio rejoiced, rolled up his sleeves, and was about to climb down. I quickly grabbed him and pulled him back, saying, "Do you want to die? Go catch some sparrows, put them in a cage first, then lower them into the tomb to check the air quality." Catching sparrows in the forest was very easy, unlike in densely populated areas where the birds were like spirits. Here, you just needed to use the simplest trap. Sprinkle some broken rice, cover it with a rice cooker pot, hide far away, and when a sparrow went under the pot to eat the rice, pull the string to release the supporting wooden stick. The pot would fall and the bird would be caught. We caught 3 sparrows in one go. I took one and put it in a cage, tied a string to it, and lowered it into the tomb. I smoked 2 cigarettes, estimated that enough time had passed, then pulled the bird cage back up. I saw the sparrow's eyes rolled back, struggling and unable to survive. This tomb had been sealed underground for several hundred years. The air inside did not circulate. Before decaying, corpses would bloat, filled with corpse gas. Then the skin, flesh, and internal organs would begin to decompose from the inside out. Although a tomb did not have a true vacuum environment, if it was not ventilated, the putrid smell of the corpses would remain compressed inside. Even after several hundred years, it would not dissipate completely. Even without corpse gas, the air alone, without circulation for hundreds of years, would form toxic gas harmful to health. Once inhaled, one would feel dizzy and faint in mild cases, and in severe cases be poisoned to death. Unless equipped with a gas mask, absolutely no carelessness was allowed at this stage. It seemed the tomb still needed time for the forest wind to clear out the toxic gas, so we returned to the slope to eat some dried rations and dried meat. We had not slept all night yesterday, and today we had done so much work. Everyone was exhausted, but just thinking about the items inside the tomb made all the fatigue disappear. This was our first operation. It was best to find something valuable. My previous knowledge of tomb raiding was only theoretical. Today's practical experience was not really difficult. Of course, this was also related to the target we chose. The New Chan people of the Kim dynasty were still an uncivilized ethnic group at that time. This tomb was built almost entirely in imitation of the northern Song style. Its scale was very small, probably built by Song craftsmen who had been captured. After all, the Dinlu Li Lua Rongyu Bao technology was extremely complex, and without high skills it would be difficult to erect. A slight error could have meant burning the tomb builders inside to death. After finishing our dry rations, we saw that it was getting late. Perhaps the air in the tomb had circulated quite a bit. We were all worried about being attacked by the monster in the pit again tonight, and were eager to get the items quickly and leave early. So we packed our belongings and went down to Danyan Kao again. This time, we still had to lower a sparrow first. We pulled the cage up and saw the birds still chirping and jumping. It seemed there were no more problems. Tuyen Bio and I drank a few mouthfuls of white liquor to steady ourselves, put on masks and gloves, hung Mo Kim talismans around our necks, stuffed black donkey hooves and glutinous rice into our chests, held flashlights, and had our military shovels strapped to our waists, then began our descent into the tomb. An Tu saw this and hastily held me tightly, saying, "Let me go in and see too. I am this old and still do not know what an ancient tomb looks like." I replied, "There is nothing much in an ancient tomb, just a corpse and burial objects. What is there to see? Actually, this is my first time too. I have never been in one before. Besides, aren't you very afraid of dead people? Why are you not afraid now?" An Tu was naturally curious. Now seeing Tuyen Bio and me acting so mysteriously, she became even more curious and insisted on going down. I thought about it. Anyway, this was a wild mountain area, and there was no need for someone to stand guard. Tomb raiders rarely act alone. Usually it is a group of 3 people. One digs the earth. Since the earth cannot be piled up next to the pit, another person specializes in moving the earth, and the third person stands far away to guard. Letting An Tu go in to observe would not be a problem. I found a mask for Anne too to wear, then gave her a few instructions. Do not remove the mask inside for 1,000, 10,000 times. First, the air quality in here is not good. Second, the breath of living people must not be left in the tomb, it is bad luck. Third, do not breathe onto the corpse. In case of a zombie possession, it will be big trouble. Although these were all superstitious legends, these rules had existed for several thousand years. No matter what, they always had some definite reason. Caution prevents worry. Everything should be done according to ancient customs. Tuyen Bio was already very impatient. Hobatnyat, when did you become so talkative? If you do not dare to go down, then let your old man Tuyen Bio go down himself. You guys just wait to count the money. I replied, damn you, if I let you go down, you would not even find the coffin. All right, let us stop bickering, it is getting dark, let us get to work quickly. The hole we dug in the wall was only about 1 meter from the tomb floor. No rope was needed, we could just jump down directly. As soon as my feet touched the ground, my heart could not help but feel a little tense. Finally, we were in. The area of the tomb was not large, at most 30 square meters. It seemed to be designed according to the layout of a living residence, with a main chamber, a back chamber, and 2 side chambers. The position we entered was one of those 2 side chambers. The coffin was placed in the middle of the main chamber. There was no coffin stand. A shallow pit was dug in the middle of the room, and the pitch black coffin was placed in it, half protruding above the ground. This was a tomb within a tomb. In the corner of the chamber were several sets of skeletons. Their skulls were all cracked and sunken, clearly the traces of being struck heavily with a blunt object. They could have been prisoners or concubines and servants who were buried alive. We were not archaeologists, so we did not bother with those things. And Tu suddenly pulled my hand. Brother Nyat, look, there are paintings on the wall. I shone my flashlight onto the wall and Tu pointed to. Indeed, there was a colored relief carving. The figures in the painting were ancient in form, lifelike. Despite the long age, the colors were still vibrant. However, the air in the tomb had been circulating, and soon these murals would fade. Tuyen Bio praised, it seems the person buried in this tomb in ancient times might have been a painter too. I scolded him, do not make so much noise. During the Tang and Song dynasties, most princely tombs had murals depicting major events in the tomb owner's life. Let us see what kind of person is buried here. There were 8 murals in total. We looked at them one by one. These paintings included scenes of hunting in the forest, scenes of drinking with friends in the palace, scenes of troops going to battle, scenes depicting the escort of prisoners, and the last painting depicted being granted a noble title. In each painting, there was a man wearing a fur coat, who was probably the person buried here. It seemed this was a general's tomb, at least a Wan Yu Hu. In those years, the Kim army invaded the south and destroyed the Song, plundering countless gold, silver, and jewels. This Kim general might have brought all the spoils of war underground. Anyway, they were all treasures of our Han people, so we would not be polite anymore. First, we walked around the tomb. The 2 side chambers were filled with earthenware and ceramic basins. The back chamber had 4 horse skeletons and some weapons and armor. There was nothing else. It seemed the Kim people did not practice lavish burial. I was somewhat disappointed. I lit a candle in the southeast corner. The 3 of us then approached the coffin in the main chamber. Whether there was anything good or not depended entirely on this. The coffin was quite large, made of black lacquered lim wood with golden patterns painted on top. The colors and shapes were very peculiar, probably related to the totem of the Nu Chan ethnic group. I touched the coffin lid, it was very sturdy. Ordinary poor people would never be able to afford such a thick coffin. Even a thin wooden one was already good. Those who were poorer would just be wrapped in a straw mat and buried somewhere. The finest among coffin woods was ebony heartwood, meaning the pith of the tree. From the time an ebony tree sprouts to when it matures, it takes at least several thousand years. This ultimate treasure could only be encountered, not sought. Only royalty could enjoy its use. If a corpse was placed in the heartwood and buried underground, the body would never decay. It was more valuable than an decomposition crystal coffin, and more effective than the fresh keeping function of a refrigerator. Next were woods like Duan wood and 1,000-year-old cypress. The thicker the heartwood, the more valuable it was. First, it prevented the corpse from decaying. Second, it was free of termites, capable of preventing ants or maggots from burrowing. Unlike ordinary wood, which would be eaten away by termites in a short time, no tomb owner wanted their body to be eaten by insects. Just thinking about it was disgusting. Therefore, the requirements for coffin wood by ancient nobles were always very strict. The wood quality of the coffin before us, although not like that of royalty, could still be considered very luxurious. I wedged the blade of the military shovel into the lid's groove and tried to pry it open with force. Unexpectedly, the nails were very firm. I tried twice, grinding my teeth, but could not pry it open. Tuyen Bio immediately jumped in to help. The two of us worked together, and finally the coffin made a few clack, clack, clack sounds. Eventually, a large crack opened up. We then changed positions and pried up each nail one by one. The tomb was very dry. The tomb walls were made of special material with excellent waterproofing capabilities. The glazed tiles on the tomb ceiling were also waterproof. Moreover, most of the rainwater in Danyan Cow was absorbed by the fallen leaves. Therefore, there was a lot of dust in the coffin. Just a slight movement caused dust to fly everywhere. Although we wore masks, we still coughed violently from choking. We would definitely have to prepare some gas masks when we returned, otherwise, we would get sick sooner or later. Tuyen Bio was about to push the coffin lid open. I suddenly wanted to scare him and play a prank. So I held his arm and said, "Tuyen Bio, guess what is in the coffin?" Tuyen Bio replied, "How would I know? Anyway, whatever we get from this can be exchanged for renminbi. And also for food stamps." I deliberately lowered my voice and said, "A long time ago, I heard my grandfather tell a story from the book Tai Ping Guangji. It also told of two tomb raiders, one fat and one thin. They dug up a large coffin in an ancient tomb. No matter how they chopped it with knives or split it with axes, the coffin would not move. The fat one knew how to recite the Dai Bai Chu. He stood in front of the coffin and recited a passage. As a result, the coffin lid automatically opened a crack. And inside, a green hairy arm stretched out. Tuyen Bio was not afraid of anything, but Anne too was terrified and quickly hid behind Tuyen Bio, saying, "Brother Nyat, stop telling such strange stories. You should know where we are. Are you trying to scare people to death?" Tuyen Bio knew I was just trying to scare him. Other than his fear of heights, he was genuinely fearless. Back then, fighting with other kids at school, he was also among the top. At this moment, Tuyen Bio's face showed no fear, not at all perturbed by my scare tactics, and he said with an air of heroism, "Little sister Anne too, do not listen to him. This brat is trying to scare me, but he does not know who Tuyen Bio is. Damn it, what the hell am I afraid of? You just let him continue telling the story." I then continued. That green hairy arm with fingernails longer than 3 soon stretched out and grabbed the fat guy who was reciting the Dai Bai Chu, pulling him inside. The coffin lid immediately closed, and only the sound of agonizing screams came from within, making the other guy scared out of his wits, turning around and fleeing. Tuyen Bio let out a few dry laughs. His laughter was a bit strained, indicating that he was probably starting to feel a little scared inside, but he still tried to act like a tough guy. He stepped forward to help me push the coffin lid. As a result, we used too much force and pushed the entire coffin lid off onto the ground. The contents of the coffin were now directly in our sight. Inside was the body of a tall man. All the water in his body had evaporated, leaving only a dry, purplish, red skin covering the skeleton. Nearly 1,000 years had passed, and this could be considered relatively perfectly preserved. The wet mummy unearthed at Mawangdui, Hunan province, was an extremely rare and unique type. Although his facial features were sunken and his eyes and nose had become black concave sockets, his face could still be vaguely recognized. This person was about 4 or 5 decades old, wearing a true Thien hat, a robe embroidered with gold thread, pink with blue trim, and dap van boots on his feet. His hands were placed horizontally across his chest. And too, from behind Tuyen Bio, poked her head out to look inside and cried out in horror. "Oh my God! It is so gruesome." She quickly turned her head away, not daring to look again. When she screamed like that, my hair also stood on end, but the coffin was already open. Could we still turn around and run away? Let us take a gamble. I clasped my hands and bowed 3 times to the corpse in the coffin. "We are short on food and clothing. It is out of desperation that we come here to borrow a few items from you, to exchange for some money to get by. If we offend you, please do not blame us. Anyway, if you needed to go to heaven, you have gone to heaven. If you needed to go to earth, you have gone to earth. If you needed to go anywhere, you have gone there. Dust returns to dust. Silver, money, and jewels are all external things. We bring nothing in life and take nothing in death. There is no benefit for you to keep wealth. We are also thieves with principles. After taking the items, we will definitely use the majority to build bridges, repair roads, improve the lives of the people, follow the example of Comrade Lei Feng, be clear about love and hate, not forget our origins, and maintain our stance." I still had half a section left to say, but Tuyen Bio could not endure it any longer. He immediately reached into the coffin and began rummaging around. I quickly reminded him, "Damn it, be gentle, do not damage the corpse." Tuyen Bio refused to listen. Since entering the tomb, he had not found anything valuable. Apart from a few chipped vases and jars, there were only the skeletons of people and sacrificial animals. After all that effort, now all his hope rested on this one coffin having something useful. I saw that further advising was useless, so I simply kept quiet to save my breath. I joined him in rummaging through the coffin. Next to the corpse were still a few porcelain items. At that time, I did not know much about antiques, especially ceramics. I only saw a few pieces of blue and white porcelain from the Northern Song period. I knew nothing about the history, technology, or value of porcelain. I only knew that gold had value and jade was priceless. So I focused entirely on finding some ancient jade pieces, carelessly tossing all the porcelain aside. Heaven had mercy. Finally, I found 2 pieces of jade in the corpse's hands. The jade was tortoise, shell-colored, carved into 2 figures resembling silkworms, like butterflies but not butterflies. We admired the pair of jade pieces for a long time, but could not identify what they were. I only knew that this could be jadeite, an item from before the Song dynasty, surely something precious. Otherwise, why would the tomb owner hold them so tightly in his hands, even in death? I guess they would be worth several tens of thousands of renminbi. That would certainly not be a small amount. At that time, there were not many millionaires in the entire country. The exact value would have to be appraised by Rang Vang when we returned. Then we would contact some Hong Kong or Taiwan merchants to sell them. Tuyen Bio was still not satisfied, and intended to pry open the corpse's mouth to see if there were any gold teeth. I told him this was enough for now, and that whatever we did, we should not be too thorough, but leave something for the deceased. We then picked out a few beautiful porcelain pieces from the coffin, and put the plain, unpatterned ones back in their original places. After taking the items, Tuyen Bio and I lifted the coffin lid, and put it back on. This time, although we did not hit it as rich as expected, we did not leave empty-handed. I said to An Tu and Tuyen Bio, "That is enough for now. Let us leave quickly, plaster the tomb wall properly, and then head back." As I finished speaking, I turned to leave, only to suddenly discover that the candle in the corner of the wall had silently gone out some time ago.